Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Brian, and this is our weird world. So it's the middle of October. We're getting closer to Halloween now. I'm pretty excited about that. My kids have their costumes for going out and trick or treating and all that come Halloween, so I'm really excited about that. My son's birthday is actually October 30th, so we're gonna have a little birthday party for him, which is nice because it's on a Sunday and then Halloween's on Monday this year. I'm gonna actually take work off so I can go out with my kids because I like being able to hang out with them and go trick or treating with them. It's fun. They enjoy it. My son's gonna be 4, my daughter's 8 now, so they're at those ages where it's fun for them to go out and get candy and all that. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, being that it's October, I want to continue along with some Halloween themed episodes. This is going to be no different. So what am I talking about today? So I'm actually talking about the Dybbuk Box. You may have heard about this. It's been featured on a lot of documentaries, a lot of various sort of like ghost hunting shows. I know Zach Baggins actually purchased this specific Dybbuk box, had it featured on one of his shows. I believe they had an episode on their show Ghost Adventures, if I remember correctly. But anyways, I'll talk a little bit more about his involvement with it later. But what is this Dybbuk box? There are other Dybbuk boxes supposedly in existence in the world, but I'm talking about this very specific one. So let's first talk about the word Dybbuk. What exactly is that word? So the word Dybbuk actually comes from Jewish mythology or folklore, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce the Yiddish version of it. I know I'll totally botch that. It's a Hebrew verb meaning adhere or cling. Now there's also a definition of this specific what a Dybbuk is. Basically a cleavage of an evil spirit, or basically it's a spirit that attaches itself to others. Basically, it's a demonic spirit. So it's also known to be basically a malicious possessing spirit, believed to be basically a dislocated soul of another dead person, and it attaches itself to you or another living host. So basically, once a person is possessed by a Dybbuk, essentially it won't leave until you have an exorcism performed, or you die, or the person that it's possessing dies. So that's really bad, right? That sounds pretty terrible. So notably, historically, mental illness was typically brushed off as a person just quote having a Dybbuk and basically needing to get have it them be rid of it, through exorcism or they pass away later. If an exorcism was performed on said person and was successful, it was said that the Dybbuks would leave the host and return to where they came from or the other side. So it seemed like having an exorcism performed on somebody that had a Dybbuk attached to them was a good option, was the best option. So part of this mythology or folklore is that Dybbuks would come to our side of existence basically through on riding on black dogs or cats. That was kind of how they would get here. So it was thought that having a black dog or a black cat was not good. It was like a bad omen, right? Like nobody wanted to be have a black dog or black cat or near them because they thought that Dybbuks were basically catching a ride with them onto our plane of existence where they could jump off the animal, the dog or cat, and possess a human. I think a part of that goes back to the whole mythology of black cats and all that, and crossing the path of black cat, etc., whatever. Don't take my word for that exactly, but I think that's kind of a part of that mythology of black cats. Is I think this is just one part of it. Now, it's important to note that in doing research for this and reading about Dybbuk boxes, it's supposedly they're so evil that even looking at pictures of them can bring about a curse, or I don't necessarily believe that, especially with what I'm going to read at the end, and you'll see why. So if you're out there searching for it online, just take that with a grain of salt. Supposedly, but it's online. Looking at it on computer, I don't know. Anyways, I personally don't believe in that. Anyways, let's get more into this. So we talked about what a Dybbuk is. So what is this Dybbuk box, especially this specific one? So this particular Dybbuk box, the original story came about. So in 2001, this box showed up on eBay. Now, eBay, if you aren't aware, is an online auction website. Some items you can do like a purchase now option. So this gentleman by the name of Kevin Manis, who owned an antique store, he's the one that posted online on eBay to sell. Now, according to him, he had purchased this box from an estate sale, and he supposedly purchased it from a woman, or rather, I believe it was the granddaughter of this woman Now, this woman supposedly had survived the Holocaust, and later, according to the story, later she had passed away at the age of 103, but not before instructing her family to not open the box. Basically, she warned everybody, do not open this. Don't do it. So this granddaughter, that's right, yeah, so it was the granddaughter, she sold said box to Kevin at an estate sale, but she warned him to never open it. I think she was trying to just get rid of it. She didn't want it because of, what her grandmother had told her. So this gentleman agreed to buy it, and he said, "Yeah, okay, I won't. Sure, I'll heed your warning. I won't open it." Now the granddaughter, she also told him that this box had been in her family for basically as long as she could remember. It was always around. So Kevin, the guy that purchased it, he actually offered to give it back to her at one point, basically assuming that it had sentimental value to her and the family. But the granddaughter, she said no, that she insisted she didn't want it and that he keep it. So Kevin, he took this box that he had purchased. He took it back to his antique shop. He didn't place it in the sales area of the floor. He actually put it in the basement. So he left it there, and he actually went out, leaving this box there. He went out to run errands or something. He was out away from his store. Now, while he was gone, he actually got a call from one of his employees who was basically just, they were freaking out after he brought this box in. So he came back to the shop and basically wondering what's going on. And when he came into the shop and into the basement, he said there was a strong odor of jasmine flowers. So jasmine flowers, they're considered a delicate and or dainty small flower. They're known around the world for their, if you will, tropical smell and pretty blossoms. They're actually a really pretty flower. It's like it has 5 petals that are white with a little yellow kind of star in the middle because the five petal pattern. Really pretty, really nice looking flower. You can grow them in a pot, hang them in baskets, whatever, things like that. So these jasmine flowers do grow in warmer tropical environments, but its particular scent or its odor is kind of, some people think that it has a very lovely, nice smell. However, a lot of people, when they smell it, almost say that it smells like urine, it smells like pee. That's kind of, so yeah. Anyways, I don't it. I've never personally smelt one, so like I said, some people say they smell really nice. Some say they smell like urine. Anyways, so Kevin came back to his store and got this odor of this, what he claimed as a jasmine flower. So he's wondering where the smell is coming from. He couldn't figure it out because the smell wasn't there before in his shop. So he's looking around and he realizes that all the lights in the basement were broken. And so he talked to this employee that was freaking out, and they told him that they had heard, quote, otherworldly screaming from the basement. And this apparently hadn't happened before, even despite some of the antiques he might have owned. They said nothing like this had happened before. So that's why this person was freaking out, because they're hearing these, quote, otherworldly screaming from the basement. So this employee actually did quit and never came back because of this. Now, despite this, I guess Kevin didn't think much of it, and he actually decided to gift this box to his own mother. He wanted to give her a nice gift, so he prepared the box, made it look nice. And of course, during this time when he was decided he was going to present as a gift to his mother, he opened it. Despite the warning from the granddaughter of the woman who survived the Holocaust that had it, even though she warned him not to open it, he opened it. Inside, he found a statue, and it had the word Shalom written on it. There were 2 locks of hair, a candlestick holder, and some dried rosebuds. So some of the items in the box have been disputed by other sources, but most that I've seen, these are items that were quoted as being in it. So Kevin's mother came to his shop, and that's when he decided to give her this box. So when he gave her the box, he left her alone to go. He went upstairs to tend to some happenings in his store. Said, "Hey, here you go. Here's this box I got for you." He came back down to the basement after he'd finished up whatever he was doing, and he found his mother just sitting in a chair, not saying anything, just sitting there, silent, not doing anything. And he wasn't sure what was going on. He couldn't figure out. He asked her what's going on, like no response. So he decided to take her to the hospital, where it was determined that she actually suffered a severe stroke and actually lost some of her ability to speak. I'm sure that's part why she wasn't responding to him. Now it took her some time through rehab to be able to regain her speech and whatnot. But during this time, she would use a board to converse. So Kevin would go visit her, and on one particular day, he was visiting her, and on this board that she was using to communicate, she wrote the words, quote, no gift. So Kevin wasn't really sure what that meant. He was kind of confused by it, and he basically reassured her that he got her this box for her birthday as this present, right? But then she wrote again, quote, hate gift. So now he's kind of thinking, well, okay, you hate this box that I gave you, which you can understand it'd be confusing. You have this cool antique box, you want to gift it to your mother, and then she has a stroke, and then she writes on this says hate gift. I'm sure you'd be hurt by that. So, anyways, after this, Kevin decided that it was a good idea just to get rid of the box, just to sell it. He had this weird thing happen with his employee where they told him there's the screaming, the broken lights. His mother's found downstairs, later realized that she had a stroke, and she says that she hates the gift through this board she wrote. So he decides to sell it. He had tried to give it to other family members before this, but nobody wanted it. His sister did take it at first, but she gave it back after a week, claiming that the doors of the box kept opening on their own. So she didn't want anything to do with that. So she gave it back to him. He agreed to take it back. So he did take this box, but he only kept it for a few days, claiming that it smelled horrible. And I think that might be the jasmine flower scent, but smelling more like pee. Now he was able to sell the box to an older couple. So this older couple, they also returned the box as well after dealing with some incidents as well. They returned the box in the middle of the night when nobody was at the shop, and they just left a note. And on the note it said, "This box has a bad darkness." That was the quote. That was actually written on the note. "This box has a bad darkness." So obviously they had something occur. Maybe the bad smell. Maybe the door's opening, weird sense or something. Anyways, I couldn't find reports exactly with this couple what they experienced. So anyways, now Kevin has the box again, and he's having trouble getting rid of it. So instead of trying to sell it again or leave it somewhere, get rid of it, destroy it, whatever, he thought it was a good idea to take it home. Yeah, he took it home with him. Okay, you've already had these weird happenings with it. The last person just brought it back with a note saying that it has bad darkness, and he brings it home. Okay, anyway, so he brought it home, and as soon as he brought it home, weird things started to happen. Claims that he started seeing shadow figures throughout his house. He would have terrible dreams or nightmares, and the specific nightmare that it would happen often apparently was a nightmare about an old lady, basically, that would beat him. Now, Kevin stated that after these dreams, he would wake up and find himself covered in bruises, like he'd actually been beaten. He told his family about these dreams and the happenings, and the ones that had the box in their possession told him that they had experienced this same dream or nightmare and also having same incidences of having bruises when they woke up. So Kevin decided he should take the box out of his house and he put it into a shed in his backyard, hoping this might stop the weirdness, right? Yeah, well, nothing changed. His nightmares kept happening, and again, he kept having the jasmine flower scent, which again can, to some people, smell like urine. So he decided that he needed to get rid of it and just sell it to anyone. So he decided to put it on eBay. So this was a couple years later. So remember I said he bought it in 2001. Now we're in 2003. So the person that bought it, it was a college student that purchased it in 2003. Now, I'm not going to give the name of this college student because multiple sources have different names, so I'm just not even going to bother. It seems like it's been all over the place with this story. So anyways, this college student began experiencing weird things just like Kevin experienced, having trouble sleeping, nightmares. One point even claims that he woke up to having bugs climbing all over his room and the box. The college student and his roommates that he lived with, they also claimed to smell the jasmine flower scent as well, smelling like urine or pee, or specifically even cat pee. I forgot to mention, a lot of people claim that it smells like cat urine. So again, this college student, he also claims to have started seeing shadow figures. He claims that he was losing his hair. People stopped talking to him. So this college student, he owned this box for 8 months. That's it. And he put it back up for sale. So at this time, while the student had the box these 8 months, he also was writing a blog about the strange things that had been happening to him. There was a man by the name of there was a man by the name of Jason Haxton, who then later decided to buy the box from him from the resources I found, for $280. And this was after he had read the student's blog, and he wanted to prove that there had to be some sort of explanation for this, some sort of scientific explanation for the happenings around this box and what was going on. So this gentleman, Jason Haxton, he owned a medical museum, and when he brought the box into this museum, he claims that his computer stopped working all of a sudden. Just he brought it in and computer stopped working. He claims that important data was lost, and again, he smelled jasmine flowers in the air of this museum that he'd never noticed smelling before. An employee of this medical museum stated that their grandparents actually passed away suddenly and unexpectedly shortly after this box was brought into this museum. And this employee and others basically begged Jason to get rid of it anyway, just get it out of there. So Jason, he did agree, and he took the box home as well. Probably not the best choice. So it wasn't much longer after this he started experiencing basically the same thing everybody else had been experiencing, seeing the shadow figures, having nightmares, things like that. But the worst thing happened when he was watching TV with his son. His son said that he had been seeing things moving out of the corner of his eyes as well. He told his dad, "Hey, I'm, kind of like probably questioning, right? Like, what am I seeing?" So he mentions this to his father, Jason. When he mentioned, so this is when they're watching TV. This is all what. So when he mentions this to his father, Jason turns to look at his son, and he, according to him, states that he saw a large, shadowy figure or mass standing directly behind his son. Now that would freak me out. Probably freak you out too, right? If you're sitting there with your child and they tell you you've got this thing you brought in, you're having these weird occurrences, seeing things, and then your child says, "Oh, hey, Dad, I've been seeing stuff," and then you turn and see this giant shadowy mass behind your child. Yeah, I think I would be freaked out too. So one of Jason's dreams, I want to go back to, he was talking about having dreams as well. He actually dreamt that a friend of his turned into a demonic old lady and then would beat him. So a lot like Kevin's nightmares of this old lady that would beat him. So very similar, right? And according to him, Jason, just like Kevin said, Jason would wake up with bruises or welts all over his body. Pretty similar, right? Pretty scary. So Jason, he also at one point was actually spitting up blood when talking to his wife. He was, whatever they're at their house, whatever they're talking, and he starts coughing up blood. And he wasn't sure why. He didn't know. He apparently had no health issues or anything, and just starts spitting up blood. Yeah, that'd be really bad and really frightening if you're spitting up blood and you don't know why. So, but what he realized was that all this stuff started occurring when he brought this box into his house. That's when things started happening. Now, Jason, he was still determined to figure out what the deal was with this box, why these things are occurring to him and to other people. So Jason started doing tests on this box for anything that might be causing these people to have these incidences or get sick or anything. But all of his tests he was performing just basically came back negative. It didn't match up to what he was thinking or finding anything around this box. So he decided to discuss this with some paranormal experts. Now these paranormal experts, they told him that he needed to try and contain the box. What they told him was that he should place it in some sort of container that's lined with gold. So he decided to do that. He found a container large enough to put it in. He lined it with gold. He placed it in there, and he claims that this actually worked, that all of the negative effects around it stopped after he placed it in this box, which, okay, that's a good thing. That sounds good. Now, after this, it was decided that he should probably get rid of it, but not in the sense of like before where everybody was just selling it off to somebody else. Hey, let me just give it to you. You take it. It's your problem now. He actually decided to put it into a larger box, and they every source I saw they quoted as a military grade box. Don't get me started on that. Having served in the military in the U.S. Navy, that term military grade, in my personal opinion, BS. So, anyways, he put it in this quote military grade box and then buried it in an undisclosed location. So after this, Jason went and decided to write a book. He spent 9 months writing a book about the box and the experiences that he had had. Through all of his research, Jason, he was able to trace the box back to this original owner, the old lady that survived the Holocaust. And through this research, he found that this lady, she had survived the Holocaust, purchased the box in Spain during World War II. According to him in his research, this woman's name was Havala, and the information about her was gained through her cousin. That's where he found this information about her. So, according to his research, Havala was using a Ouija board to contact good spirits in hopes of fighting back against the Nazis during World War II. It seems totally pure, and you think about that like, okay, I'm going to, you might have different thoughts about Ouija boards, Ouija. I tend to say Ouija, but Ouija. You think good intentions, right? That she wants to contact good spirits to help fight against the Nazi regime. Okay, seems pure at heart. However, when she was using the Ouija board and doing this, according to him and his Jason and his research, she accidentally released a very evil spirit that she ended up containing within this infamous Dybbuk box. Sounds pretty cool. So, according to Jason's research, Havala, she kept the spirit in this box for as long as she had it, but wouldn't allow anybody to open it like her granddaughter warned. She wouldn't open it. So according to this, she contained it and just kept it and just left it shut forever. And then later, obviously, when she passed, her granddaughter came in possession of it, who wanted to get rid of it, sold it, but warned to never open it. Kevin got it, opened it, and everything started happening from there, spiraling out of control and going on from there, and all these accounts of everything happening. So that's kind of neat. So where does that put us now in modern times? So in 2017, Zach Baggins of Ghost Adventures, the show, if you've seen it, it's pretty cool. I like watching it. They do some pretty cool stuff. There's some stuff on there, some episodes that I've seen that are, eh, seem a bit silly. I know they try to do a good job of trying to debunk things in their shows. But anyways, I've always liked watching that show, Ghost Adventures, and Zach Baggins. Seems he's a pretty extreme guy. Seems like on that show, but it's fun to watch. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a pretty cool show. Um, so some sources claim that Jason donated it to Zach Baggins. Others that Zach paid $10,000 for it. Everything I've seen says that he paid $10,000 for it. I know there's a show he mentions it. So Zach placed this box in his own museum that he has in Las Vegas. Now, at first, Zach he wasn't letting anybody under the age of 18 even see this box. You had to be an adult. You had to sign a waiver in order to check it out. And basically, it was a waiver basically taking all the responsibility away from him and saying, look, if you want to see this, you're on your own if anything happens. So the following year, in 2018, Post Malone, the musician, I'm sure you've heard of him. If you haven't, check him out. His music, he has a couple songs that I like, but for the most part, whatever. Anyways, he's a famous musician. You've probably heard of him. He wanted to check this out. So he actually went to this museum with Zach, and basically Zach was like, hey, you want to check it out? And Post Malone was like, yeah, okay. So Zach actually took he had a glass container around it. He actually took it off and let Post Malone touch the box. So during this, I misspoke. So Zach took the glass container off, and Zach himself, he touched it for the first time. While doing so, Post Malone actually touched Zach at the same time. Now, according to some people, it's believed that this actually led Post Malone to being cursed. Well, how? Why? What happened? So shortly after this visit, Post Malone had a flight to go to London. So he went on this flight to London, and according to resources, the tires on the landing gears blew out, but the plane was still able to land safely despite this. But of course, that doesn't typically happen. These, aircraft tires are big, like 100-ply tires, and they don't just randomly blow out on their own. So yeah, that happened, but they landed okay. Now, a few days later, there was actually a group of three men who broke in to Post Malone's previous house. He had moved out; he didn't own the house anymore. But there are three men that broke into this house that he previously owned. They came in and they shot the current owner while they were looking for Post Malone. So obviously they were there to attack him or murder him or something, but they attacked and shot the current owner of the house at the time. Now, if you didn't think that was bad enough, he was in a car accident just a few days later as well. So Post Malone was mostly unharmed, nothing major, didn't have any major injuries or anything like that. But he believed that there was a more sinister force behind this and believed that it was related to this incident where he touched Zach Baggins, who was touching the Dybbuk box. So that's unfortunate for Post Malone, but it seems like that's the only misfortune he had were those few incidences. But they happened just all within a short period right after that time. Now later in 2020, Zach Baggins decided to quarantine in the museum during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they used this for his show. And on the season finale of his show in that summer, he decided to open the box. So according to Zach Baggins, states that there are 10 Dybbuk boxes in the world and that he owns two of them. Also, he stated that two of the boxes are unaccounted for. and possibly buried somewhere so that no one can find them. Now, Jason, the gentleman that had it and had done all this research before, and before he either donated or sold it to Zach, he said that he didn't agree with this, and he claims that this is the only Dybbuk box. So this is the true. It's a single item. This is the only one in the world. Either way, whether you believe that there's this one or there's 10, like Zach Baggins states, I know I had mentioned at the beginning of this episode that there were claims of others being around in the world. In some of my research, I found a lot of that statement as well, that there are others around the globe as well. So, regardless, whether it's one or there's multiples, it's, let's just say, if you have the chance to see one of these, maybe don't see it, maybe don't look at it, or get near one, don't open it, don't touch it, don't buy it on eBay. Um, it's almost like Pandora's box, right? You don't know what's going to come of it, especially if you open it. Pretty mysterious, and evil spirits. It just sounds pretty scary. So this thing that I want to mention as well, in 2021, Kevin Manis, the gentleman who originally supposedly purchased it in 2001, he actually told Input magazine that the story of him, all the occurrences, everything happening, was totally fake. He said that it was totally fictional, that none of it is real. Yeah. So he he's basically, so Kevin Manis, not only is he the owner of this antique store, he's also a writer. And so he purchased this supposed box, which turns out, some people claim that it's a wine cabinet or like a liquor box. So he bought it at a yard sale from a local attorney in Portland, Oregon, and that's when he started developing this backstory. So this was 2003. This was 2003 when he bought it, and he developed his backstory to 2001. According to Kevin Manis, quote, "The carving in the back of it is my carving. The stone that was in the box is something that is a signature creation of mine also. Make no mistake, I conceived the Dybbuk Box, the name, the term, the idea. And I wrote this creative story around it to post on eBay." So, he's saying that this is all fake and he just created it, I guess to have some fun. So he auctioned it, and in the description on eBay, the eBay description, it included the story claiming that the cabinet was previously owned by the survivor of the Holocaust from Poland, who said it contained the spirit that was caught, known as a Dybbuk, and that the box had paranormal powers and was responsible for his bad luck and these nightmares, and that the subsequent owners retold Manis the story when reselling it over and over, that and saying that it amplified and that of these strange phenomena, right? So, is it real? Is it fake? Is it fiction? Back in 2014, before all of this, a skeptical author by the name of Brian Dunning, he actually was allowed to investigate the box, or I should say, he investigated the box legend, and he determined that, quote, "The whole idea of the box being inhabited by a Dybbuk is nonsensical, according to what a Dybbuk is supposed to be. The Encyclopedia Mythica describes it as a disembodied spirit possessing a living body that belongs to another soul, and usually talks from that person's mouth. An important 1914 Yiddish play, The Dybbuk, was about the spirit of a dead man who possessed the living body of the woman he had loved, and had to be exorcised. Nowhere in the folkloric literature is there precedence for a Dybbuk inhabiting a box or other inanimate object." He's saying this. He's a skeptical. He does this research, and he's saying, well, here's this. Why would there be this thing in this box if it is only, according to these mythologies, going to possess a human and won't inhabit some sort of inanimate object? So, okay, that makes you think that this Kevin Manis' story had to be fake, right? All right. So, in Skeptical Inquirer Online, he had a section called Closer Look. It was a column called Closer Look. And in January 2019, investigator Kenny Bindle, he reviewed the Dybbuk box on display at Zach Baggins' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, and he concluded, following careful investigation of the construction of and the history of the box, he says, quote, "Despite what various owners would have us think, the infamous Dybbuk box is not a haunted Jewish wine cabinet from Spain, but instead a mini bar from New York." Now, Bindle, he also wrote that he believed that Kevin Manis created this story around it from quote whole cloth. He just totally created this elaborate story that started this whole legend. And there was no accounts for the supernatural events around it. No real accounts surrounding the supernatural events of it. Basically, he said that Manus came up with this fictional backstory to basically help sell items and or this mini bar at his antique store. Biddle's claim of the box and its legend being fraudulent is backed up by a screen capture. There was a Facebook post made by the originator of the legend, Kevin Manus, to it's the Haunt Me, and me is capitalized Haunt Me page on Facebook, which dates back to, according to Bindle, dates back to October of 2015. And this is what that post says. Quote, I am the original creator of the story of the Dybbuk Box, which appeared as one of my eBay posts back in 2003. How about this? If you or anyone else can find any reference to a Dybbuk Box anywhere in history prior to my eBay post, I will pay you $100,000 and tattoo your name on my forehead. In 2021, Manus, he did admit to writer Charles Moss that the box was his own creation, this whole story behind it. And he said, quote, I am a creative writer. The Dybbuk Box is a story that I created, and the Dybbuk Box story has done exactly what I intended it to do when I posted it 20 years ago, which is to become an interactive horror story in real time. Also, quote, added new elements to the Dybbuk Box story over the years to help it evolve it, keeping it relevant and interesting. So it almost reminds me of like Slender Man. You know, is this fictional character creature that was created online and people kind of ran with it on their own, adding to it, things like that, and growing the story more elaborate as it went along. That's kind of what this reminds me of. But the Dybbuk box, I mean, it took on a whole new life of its own when he created this. If supposedly he did create this as a fake story. Let's step back and say for seconds, let's say it was all real. Let's say he didn't make it up. Let's say this was real. There was this box. This lady, Holocaust survivor, bought it in Spain, was using a Ouija board to help fight the Nazis, but brought some evil spirit. She captured in this box. Then all these things started happening years later. It was sold, so on and so forth. All this stuff happened. You know, okay, if it's true, wow, I mean, that's really spooky. That's really scary. But then, according to this, there's so much evidence that it obviously is fictional. And if Zach Baggins did indeed pay $10,000 for it, I feel bad for him spending that much money on this thing that's just totally fake. So yeah, if Zach Baggins spent that much money to purchase this for his museum, you know, that's really unfortunate. You know, he was taken for a ride then, essentially, right? If this is all fake, he basically just has this uh, box from New York that's essentially, who knows what the actual value of it. You know, I suppose it could still be an antique, but it obviously doesn't have this, you know, this whole backstory going so far back with all the demonic possession, all that sort of thing, and all the crazy happenings that went along with it. So I don't know. Yeah, it seems really unfortunate for him and everybody that was duped by it. You know, people that went to the museum and wanted to see it. But it makes you think, like talking about the story about Post Malone with all the things he had afterwards. You know, is there really a curse with it? Are you cursed if you see it or touch it or whatever, interact with it? I don't know. It makes me feel like that Post Malone may have just been, you know, had a string of bad luck or something. Some bad occurrences just happen to happen all at the same time. So who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was fun to research this. Very interesting, pretty cool story, even if it is fake. I'm definitely, after reading this and seeing the evidence, you know, definitely believe that it is. You know, either way, really interesting, really cool, neat idea. Definitely a good, you know, spooky Halloween story. It could be definitely would be a good story to, you know, maybe evolve it into your own as a nice spooky Halloween night story or a spooky around the campfire kind of story thing like that. That could be fun. So yeah, if you like it, you know, maybe adopt into your own. You know, change it a little bit, have some fun with it. You know, run with it. Don't do anything too crazy. Have fun with it, kind of like the whole Slenderman thing, like I mentioned before. You know, add to it as you will. Have some fun with it, right? You know, that's some of the fun or some of the reasons I enjoy this time of year is even stuff like this that I know are fake, that are fictional tales. It can be fun to let your imagination run wild and scare yourself, right? That's It's why we like watching horror movies. That's why I like watching horror movies. It's like it makes you feel alive afterwards. Like you know it's fake. It's just for fun. Yes, there are ones that are based on real stories, of course, but it's for fun. And actually, that makes me remember. I totally forgot to mention there was actually a movie that came out that was done by Guillermo del Toro, I believe, if I'm correct, in 2012, called The Possession. That was about the Dybbuk Box, and apparently their production had all kinds of problems and issues while they were trying to film. So, was it related to the Dybbuk Box and actually being possessed, or was it just bad luck during the filming? Again, if the story's all fake, then I guess they might have just been having bad luck, bad equipment, who knows, whatever. And it makes me feel sorry for him as a filmmaker and everybody involved in that. Also, too, if this is all fake, like they made this multi-million-dollar box office movie, it was sort of successful. It wasn't a major hit success, but it did make money. I believe it was like $40 million budget and made like $90 million, so just over double its budget. So it still made money, but wasn't the big hit that thought it was going to be. So, anyways, yeah, if you enjoyed this, let me know. If you have any stories related to the Dybbuk box or anything similar, let me know as well. I'd love to hear it. I hope you keep enjoying October. Hope you're looking forward to Halloween and you enjoy it when it gets here. I know I'm looking forward to it. And if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Facebook, Our Weird World. I'll have it linked in the notes. You can also send me an email at ourweirdworldpodcast@gmail.com. That's going to be the best way to get in touch with me if you want to just ask me a question, send me a suggestion, whatever. If you want to just say hi, if you want to say happy Halloween, whatever, that's fine too. I'd love to hear it. Until then, take care. We'll catch you next time.